Hello again, friends, and welcome into another edition of Wrestling with Rusty for May 26, 2024. Thank you for joining me, and happy Memorial Day to everybody that might see this live or on playback today or days or months later. Have a safe Memorial holiday out there and drive safe not only on Memorial Day, but every day, please. And don't drink and drive. This video I want to talk to you today is about Ric Flair opening his mouth once again. Now, before I get into this, let me say to all the people masturbating in their mama's basement that I cannot deny that Ric Flair was one of the greatest pro wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots. But I'm not talking about Ric Flair as a pro wrestler. I'm talking about Ric Flair, the human being, in this video. As many of you may know, over the last couple of weeks, he got drunk at a Paisano's pizza place, bar, and restaurant in Gainesville, Florida. I may have said Tampa, Florida on a previous video, but it was Gainesville, Florida. I stand corrected. Doesn't matter the location, though. And made an ass out of himself, which he has done several times in the past over the last 5 to 10 years or more. Not at the Paisano's Pizza, but at various public locations around the country. The Paisano's Pizza was the latest one. And many people had been jokingly saying that Ric Flair wanted to die in the ring and he didn't know the difference between, as I said, many others said, Richard Flair, the real person, and Ric Flair, the character. And I still believe that. I don't think he knows the difference. Or to him, there is no difference. And what I mean by that is he don't know how to be a decent person in real life. When I met Ric Flair through a ring rat, Sandy Brown of the 1970s in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then I met Jackie Crockett and met Ric Flair through Jackie Crockett and various other people in the 80s. Ric Flair in the 70s and 80s was a kind, caring, decent person. But as the 80s turned into the 90s, the real Ric Flair came out. Richard Flair came out. And Richard Flair is an asshole, a no good motherfucker, excuse my language, and one sorry son of a bitch. And the story I'm about to tell you, if you haven't heard already, is further proof of that. Not only did he badmouth Paisanos on Twitter and in the public, but he then went and ordered food the same night for delivery after he had said that he had been disrespected in the Paisanos earlier that day and spending $1,500. $1,000 of that was a tip to a waitress. So in reality, on merchandise and food, he only spent $500. But the point I'm trying to make is, after being an asshole and saying that he was disrespected, even though he was really drunk in the Paisanos, he ordered food later that night. So let me get this straight. If he was disrespected in the Paisanos, as he claimed to be, why would he order food later that night from the same establishment for delivery? I recently had an issue back in January where I was lied to by a Papa John's pizza, and I haven't ordered Papa John's anymore. But that's just me. Most of us, if we're disrespected that bad, we don't go back to the same place a second time, and certainly not in the same damn day. But anyway, moving that along, he apparently has either learned how to do Twitter/X or has somebody doing his Twitter account for him. But apparently he's been in this Twitter war with former professional wrestler and booker Dirty Dutch Mantel, longtime professional wrestler who has wrestled Ric Flair, by the way, in the past. And Dutch Mantel has been an outspoken critic of Ric Flair, saying Ric Flair needs to grow up and Ric Flair needs to know the difference between Ric Flair and Richard Flair. All the stuff that we've all been saying, myself included. And apparently that got back to Ric Flair recently. And Ric Flair admitted what we all knew. We just couldn't get him to admit it for years. That Ric Flair not only wants to die in the ring, but if he can't die in the ring, he wants to, as he put it, die in the limelight, which proves everybody's point that Ric Flair doesn't know the difference between Ric Flair and Richard Flair. Now, for those of you that say, oh, Rusty, you're picking on Ric Flair, you're trying to kick a man when he's down, he's still upset about his son's death and blah, 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 blah. There are plenty of people that have children and other family members that die, or other friends that die, like myself, who had my friend Don Kernodle, pro wrestler, commit suicide back in 2021, or my friend Ivan Koloff that died of liver disease in 2017, or my friend Abe Jacobs that died this year in 2024 at the age of 95. We don't go around threatening people in public. We don't go around threatening people on Twitter. We don't go around threatening to sue people every time the wind blows. But again, Ric Flair doesn't know the difference between Ric Flair and Richard Flair. So this is another example of you might get older, but you're not guaranteed to grow up. Some people never grow up. They might get older if they stay alive, but some people never grow up. I think we've all had a family member, a boss, a friend that gets older, but they never grow up. They still are trying to be the life of the party and disruptive in public, or an asshole, or a combination of all the above. And this is also a case of be careful how you meet your heroes, as the old saying goes, or something like that, because your heroes might not be able to measure up to what you think they should be. Ric Flair is an egomaniac, a guy who doesn't know the difference between Ric Flair and Richard Flair. And until somebody cancels him and makes him be held accountable for his actions in public and being an asshole, then he's going to continue to be an asshole in public and in private. As I said, some people get older, but they never grow up. He just proved by what he said, I want to die in the limelight. Most of us want to die with our family, want to die with our friends, want to die at home, not in some nursing home, want to die with money and not dirt poor like I am on $944 a month. Hey, Ric Flair, you piece of shit. Why don't you try to live on $944 a month? Fuck you, Ric Flair. But the fact of the matter is, most people in public, whether they're wrestling fans or some other type of fan of entertainment, they continually make excuses for Ric Flair's behavior. I wonder at what point are people going to stop making excuses for Ric Flair's behavior and hold Richard Flair accountable for the mistakes of Ric Flair. Once again, I say some people get older, but they never grow up. And Ric Flair is the classic case of getting older, but never growing up. And he's also the classic case of never meet your heroes, because they just might not measure up to what you think they should be. Ric Flair is a sorry human being. He was a great wrestler in his day, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and even into the 2000s. But Richard Flair is a sorry human being. And whether Dutch Mantel says it, Rusty Loudermilk says it, or anybody else too numerous to mention have said it in the past, or anybody that might say it in the future, The end result speaks for itself. Ric Flair just refuses to grow up, and we'll still have to hear his ass because nobody wants to hold Ric Flair accountable for his actions. We'll still have to hear Ric Flair and his ridiculous arguments from now until I'm afraid to say the day he dies, whether it be on Twitter, on video, on any other social media platform, on television, or wherever it may be. Ric Flair is only concerned about one thing and one thing only, and that is Ric Flair. And Richard Flair is a sorry human being. That's going to do it for me, Rusty. I'm out of here. Let me say a special thanks to special investigator of the channel, Raymond Tipton. Raymond, my brother from another mother. Thank you for your past, present, and future help. Continued success to you there in Johnson City, Tennessee. Hope to get to Tennessee one day. But anyway, thank you to all of you that have watched the channel, past, present, and future. Tell your friends to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. If you have subscribed, tell your friends to watch this video and all the other videos on the channel. Most of it is pro wrestling, not all of it, but the stuff from now going forward will be pro wrestling. There's some college football on here and pro football from the past, but I've turned it into a full-time pro wrestling channel. So when you want your pro wrestling news, come back here to this channel, past, present, and future. Special thanks to Dan Mullen of the nice podcast Stupid for allowing me on his show last night, Friday, as we interviewed Tommy Angel. And that video is up on this channel as well. It's titled Pro Wrestling Legend Tommy Angel and his life from the 1980s to the present, or something like that. I don't know the exact title because I can't remember it off my head, but it was just put up yesterday, Friday, May 25th, 2024. So you can find it. It also has Tommy Angel's 1980s wrestling promo picture in the thumbnail of the video with a blue jacket, a royal blue jacket on. So you can find it real easy. So check out the Tommy Angel interview from yesterday on here. Check out the past pro wrestling videos on here. And check out future pro wrestling videos for all your news, free all the time, right here on Wrestling with Rusty, right here on YouTube. Until we meet again, my friends, God bless. Stay away from pieces of garbage like Ric Flair, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care and have a safe and happy Memorial Day and a safe summer. Thanks, everybody.